Kia ora everyone, my name's Zach, I love rugby, welcome back to Hakatime Rugby. A 1-point nail biter, the Springboks win it again. It took all of their experience off the bench in order to get over the top of what it was a really brave performance by England. England were completely written off going into this game. It was clear that the differences in class, a lot of people were talking about England being blown off the park, but they really turned up for this game. They had a clear game plan. It was to slow down the ball. It was to disrupt the breakdown, to play the percentages in terms of territory with contested kicks and disrupt that high ball. They did it to great effect, and they led for 77 minutes of this game, right? It took the experience of a Andre Pollard to get over the top and clinch it for the Springboks. So I'm going to run through my review now, guys, of the game, and we've got a lot to look forward to in terms of this final. So we're going to start previewing the final now with a couple of key points I think are going to be really, really important. Before we get into all the details, I just want to remind everyone, the bottom left corner of your screen here, I ran a poll yesterday, and it was asking you guys the question. As an All Blacks fan, this is from my point of view, there was one player who scares me more than any other in the Springboks squad as we go into a final. Keep that in the back of your mind, and I'll reveal exactly who that person was because they came to the fore in this game. Now, the first half, let's look at it. Early points for England in the second minute. They were awarded a penalty. It went against Pieter-Steph du Toit for not holding his body weight. And I'm going to run through a few moments from the referee here because there was a lot of criticism from the referee. I jumped on Twitter and you guys were very, very opinionated about his performance, about whether or not he was sort of swaying the game in England's favour. Look, the referees are under a significant amount of pressure in these games. And I think you have to give England credit for really putting the referee under pressure because, you know, when they are put in difficult spots, what I've noticed as a trend here is the refs are trying to refrain from making calls, but under enough pressure, they will be forced to make calls. This one I thought was a correct statement. Pieter-Steph du Toit not holding up his body weight. And go back to that game against France where, you know, Kwagga Smith was sort of, there was a lot of feedback that maybe he wasn't doing a similar thing there. I thought he was okay in that instance because he wasn't really supporting his body weight. The shape of his body I thought was in a good position. Here, not so much for Pieter-Steph du Toit. So I thought it was a good call from the referee. England take the penalty goal and they go up 3-0. Moving forward, and what we saw was a lot of backwards and forwards, contestable kicks, and as I mentioned in the intro, England starting to get the better of those exchanges. Just starting to drift more in terms of territory, getting themselves in better positions, winning the 50-50 exchanges, and it was another penalty kick on the 9th minute, where Khaleesi was deemed to be hands in the ruck. This was an interesting one because the ball wasn't quite out. Khaleesi made his attempt at grabbing the ball either a little bit too late or a little bit too early, however you want to look at it. But the referee deemed it was still a ruck. No rights to play the ball with your hands. Khaleesi got his timing wrong, I thought. I thought another correct call from Ben O'Keefe. Anyway, England take the points, 6-0 at this point. It continues on in this kind of backwards and forwards kicking exchange. What was interesting at this point is the line-out, actually. England started to have a lot of success. So if we just have a look at some of the match stats, you know, territory won by England in the end. That's a big part of their kicking game, contested kicking game, and the success that they were having. Possession was very high possession stats for England. 56 points in terms of overall possession and 71% in that final 10 minutes. Really, really interesting stuff. And that was just reward for those contested kicks, as I mentioned. But the set plays in terms of the line-out were really, really close. A lot of success for England in the line-out. You know, they were able to steal ball. We saw it in the first half. And a lot of success for the Springboks in the scrum, which I will get to. As we continue on, though, at this point we are up around the 13th minute. So a penalty awarded, Curry and Laws deemed to be in front of the kicker and offside. A big moment here. Huge moment on the 20th minute. The Springboks get a penalty. Alex Mitchell deemed to be sealing off, and the Springboks an opportunity to draw a little bit closer. So Mannie Libbok had a really, really mixed performance in this one. I think tactically kicking, not the best, but in terms of goal kicking, he managed to secure that one on the 21st minute, got that one over. It's now 6-3. Now, Mannie Libbok, a couple of kicks for goal just really didn't get the distance, a couple of errors in terms of his returns, and a couple of errors with the handling errors. So, that was another reason why England were able to get territory advantages, because either the exits weren't working as well from Mannie Libbok's perspective, or, just errors leading to inviting England into their the territory. Big moment on the 23rd minute, Khaleesi deemed not rolling away. And I thought, again, that was another clear, correct penalty from Ben O'Keefe. And England take it again, 9 points to 3, another penalty goal taken there by Owen Farrell. Moving forward, and we get a huge substitution at the 30th minute mark, and it is Mannie Libbok being taken off for Handré Pollard. A lot's going to be made about this in the lead up to the All Blacks game in terms of the final, about whether or not the occasion was too big for him. Was it just errors, or was it the style of rugby that England were bringing? And I think ultimately it was the style of rugby that England were bringing. They were really disruptive. They were putting pressure on. And there was a need to win territory and possession. And with Handré Pollard, a cool head in the game, they're able to control territory and possession, manage the game a little bit better. I thought that was a really, really important substitution for the Springboks. It was ultimately just genius from Jacques Nienaber, and obviously Rassie would have had some input into that. But it does bring into doubt how the selections will be played out for the All Blacks final, because I think it was very clear here there was a real importance needed on game management and territory management, and if you want to do that for longer periods of this game and not put yourself under pressure the way that this happened, then probably Handré Pollard is the better option. As we move forward, the game ends, let's say, half-time. Just before half-time, there was another penalty, 37th minute. Peter Steph Tutoi deemed to be obstructing. Now, this one was a real 50-50 call. If you recall, it was a high ball. It was a restart that came up. High ball, I should say. And Peter Steph Tutoi just sort of pushed back at that moment, and it looked like it was deemed obstruction. Now, was it obstruction? Was it not? I thought it was a real 50-50 call, that one. The body language shows that it was just a slight obstruction, but normally referees would let that one go, and it would be more the danger placed on the player. I think it was Colby who was put in a compromising position under the high ball and landed in a really difficult position. But the penalty was given to England in that occasion. They were able to get the penalty goal, and at halftime, it is 12 points to 6. England dominating territory, winning line-out, as I mentioned, and better possession stats at that point. Importantly, though, Handré Pollard is injected, and I thought the game management from that point onwards really started to turn in favour of the Springboks. Now, if we move into the second half and the 43rd minute, a couple of massive changes. Willie Leroux is brought on for Damian Willemse, and Faf de Klerk is brought on for Kobus Reinach. I think at this point in time, it was very clear that the Boks needed their game managers, their generals on the pitch in order to drag them back into this game and get the win. So let's move forward. More subs taken at the 45th minute. Etzebeth taken off for Sneeman, and a lot of people were questioning whether or not that was the right call in terms of Etzebeth's minutes. I think if you've got to look between taking Franco Mostert off or Eben Etzebeth, Mostert just seems to be, have a little bit more stamina in the tank and can probably go longer periods. So if you want that sort of more power lock game, then a swap out for Etzebeth and Sneeman makes most sense. It certainly means that you've got more of that sort of power in play for longer periods of the game. Oxenchair is introduced at the 48th minute. Kitsoff comes off. And to answer the question on my poll, who is the player that I'm most scared of going into the final? It is that man, Oxenchair. He was dominant, supremely dominant in the scrums, and was a big reason why the momentum swung in favour of the Springboks. The other thing is, when you're winning scrum penalties, it's a way of managing territory. You automatically get an exit, whether it's from your 5 metre line, your 22, or even anywhere around half. Or even more beneficially, if you're inside their half, you get shots at goal. So keep that thought in your mind. But that was the answer to the poll that I ran yesterday, and I thought he was huge. Substitutions continued. Sia Khaleesi comes off at the 48th minute, 49th minute, and Dion Ferree enters at that point. And what we get on the 50th minute is the first Ox scrum. And it's an England feed, and ultimately Ox just dominates Cole at this point and wins the tight head in favour of the Springboks. What was interesting here is shortly after that moment, Cole was taken off. I thought that they kept him on for 1 or 2 minutes too long, because really you've got fresh legs there in terms of Ox's ability to scrum, and you've got tired legs there in terms of Cole's. So probably didn't get the timing right in the substitutions there, England, but huge inclusion there for Ox. And I think I think that secondary scrumming unit of Vincent Koch and Ox and Chur is going to be hugely dangerous come the final. I do have my thoughts on how you negate that, right? Which I'll get to in a video this week as part of my preview. But, they were just absolutely dominant and swung this game on its head. Now, the 52nd minute, Owen Farrell scores the drop goal, and that was a fantastic drop goal from him. I think he had a feel for the game, that it was starting to get away from them, that territory was starting to be won, and set piece starting to be won by the Springboks, so take the points when they're on offer. A 49-metre drop goal on an angle, just slotted it straight through, fantastic stuff. At that point, they're 15 points to 6, despite the Springboks starting to drag themselves back into this game and get more ascendancy at set piece and territory. And it's a 9-point lead. At this point, I was thinking one more score, whether it be if you can take it beyond 14 points, and you'd have to say it's game over, the way that England were playing, and they certainly had their opportunities. So, another sub at the 55th minute. Franz Malherbe is taken off, and Vincent Koch comes on, and what the Springboks now have is their strongest scrummaging unit, or at least fresh players at this point, able to really dominate the scrum at that point. Moving forward, Aronson makes an error on his own 5-metre line, and it is a scrum to England. Now, this is the point, all right? This is the point where, for me, if England get points at this point in the game, it is game over. It's the 58th minute, 20 minutes remaining, deep in your own territory, 5 meters from your line. And the way this sort of played out was we started to see some scrum gamesmanship from England. Number of resets, a couple of pauses, just slightly delayed. There was one reset of the scrum here before Ox gets in under Sinclair. He drives in and under, right? And forces both Kyle Sinclair and Jamie George to pop up, getting the penalty. All of that pressure is now alleviated with the Springboks able to get out of their own zone. Now we continue forward, and another scrum at the 66th minute, right? So at this point, it's the SA feed. They take the penalty, and, Ox is just having a huge performance at this point. There was another reset at this point, so we're just starting to see England slow things down. And Handré Pollard steps up, kicks it into touch 10 metres out. Fantastic kick from around about the halfway line, and really puts England under pressure. And what we saw there is Dion Farrell gets the ball out of the line out. Nice little line out variation. And I'm going to really drill down into the set piece, guys, both scrum and line out in the lead up to that battle. But what I'm seeing more and more from the Springboks is luring teams into, the fakes, I won't say fake, but just false setup of the maul, and instead going for variation with running game. Dion Farrell is the target in this instance. He makes 20 meters and gets stopped just short. And who is there? Big Ajay Sneeman, able to grab the ball, run in under the line and score that try. So fantastic work from him. Again, another power lock. It was almost reminiscent of the try from Etzebeth last week, where, just a big, strong lock, running in, taking defenders and scoring the try. At this point, and Pollard drills it for the conversion. At this point, you're in the 68th, 69th, 70th minute, and it's now 15 points to 13. 2 points behind. It's all set up there to play for to win the game. Now, we fast forward to the 75th minute. It's a South Africa scrum feed, right? And off an error from England. And this is just inside England half, right? So you're sort of 48, 49 meters out in the England half. They make an error, knock it on, and it's South Africa scrum. And who steps up? It's, again, Vincent Koch, Oxenche. They get the penalty. They set it up for a Handré Pollard goal, and he's able to slot it in, nail it, 16 points to 15. We're in the 77th minute now, and the Springboks were able to close it out for the win. What I've just outlined for you there, guys, is a period of dominance for England, where they were really disrupting the ball, disrupting breakdown, winning favour with the ref, and getting territory and possession advantage. We saw a tactical substitution made just before halftime. We saw more substitutions made just after halftime. We saw Ox and Chur start to dominate the scrum. We saw the Springboks using that as a weapon to great effect, causing both, relieving pressure when they're on their own 5 metre line, getting advantage and able to kick to the corner to set up that try for Ajay Sneeman, or getting the winning goal at the end. And that is why The ultimate answer to my question there is Ox, because that second unit scrummaging is going to be a real threat in the final. But also, it just set up what was a fantastic win for the Springboks and a fantastic final to look forward to. Now, I've run through all the details of the game, guys, and I've spoken a little bit about areas that I think, we're really highly contested. But I'm going to do a full preview, a number of episodes in the lead up to the final, and I want you guys to stick with me. If you remember back to 2019, guys, I did a 4 or 5 part series, preview videos in the lead up to my ultimate prediction, which I'll just remind you, I got correct. I predicted the Springboks when no one else did in terms of, that final in 2019. And there are so many interesting talking points in the lead up to this one, and so many factors that I think are going to decide this winner. I've got it in my mind who I think will win this game, guys, but I'm going to take you on the journey and break down all the key points to illustrate why I think that team will win. So make sure you stick with me on Hakatime Rugby, guys. We've got a lot to cover this week. A lot more videos coming from me, and we're going to build up this massive final to decide who will be the first team to win 4 Rugby World Cups. I hope you enjoyed the preview. If you did, hit like, guys. The review, I should say, hit like. Subscribe to the channel if you want to continue to watch all of this detail in the lead up. And I will speak to you guys soon.